Hello from Hemmingford, Quebec, everybody. I'm David Smith, datasmith on Lichess, and welcome to more chess content from the Hemmingford Chess Club. So today we're going to start what I'm hoping is going to become a regular feature, and that's a series of videos in which I or other members of the club play a rapid game against a bot, against another member of the club, or against an anonymous opponent, and narrate our thought process as we go along. Now, of course, you may have seen some of the real pros doing it, like Daniel Naroditsky or John Bartholomew, and they're fantastic and really valuable videos to watch. But I think there's also a value, at least for the person doing the narration, there's a value in doing that in terms of being disciplined about thinking through your moves and articulating your thought, or having a disciplined thought process. And there may also be some value for you, the watcher, in being able to see us make some more relatable types of errors than a grandmaster like Naroditsky would make. So we're going to start this today and we'll see how it goes. The games will be relatively short, but nevertheless, between the game and a short analysis afterwards, the video will probably be between 30 and 45 minutes long. All right, so to get the game going, we're going to play today against a bot. In this case, a bot called maia5, which is a research project actually by a couple of University of Toronto researchers, or AI researchers. And what they've done is they've tried to create a bot that behaves as much as possible the way a player of our level would. So the moves that it's going to play are not the moves that it necessarily considers the best moves, so much as the moves that are most likely to be played by a player of our strength. So here we are in the Queen's Gambit accepted in this case. So black has captured this pawn. Now, of course, it's not really a gambit in the sense that white can win the pawn back immediately just by playing a check out here on a4. But white doesn't normally recapture that way. The idea is to take the time that black has given us and go ahead and develop. So we're going to develop the knight here. Play the pawn so that we can recapture this. Now, of course, yes, this is a classic response by black. Black wants to hold on to that pawn. So let's see if I can remember how to do it exactly. Depends how serious. Okay. Okay, so here's the case where, let's see, what's the right move? I believe this is the right move. So we are still going to win our pawn back. Okay. Yes, that's right. So captures, now I capture the B pawn. If he recaptures on B5, I recapture with check, which gives me the tempo then to recapture the B3 pawn. So this is a classic response of a player who does not necessarily know the theory of the Queen's Gambit accepted. So I will simply go ahead and recapture on B3 and see where black takes it from here. So there's no, neither side has come out ahead here. Black can argue that if we take trade off all the pieces, then black will have this extra, not extra pawn, but a pawn that is a passed pawn and on the far wing. So that's a certain advantage for black. White, on the other hand, has a bit more, definitely more central control. And I think white can't go into the end game. White has to take advantage of its development lead and extra space in the middle game. So we want to take as much initiative as possible, keep putting pressure on the opponent. So, the One of the obvious next moves for black would be to advance the pawn with the idea of getting his bishop out and then castling. So why don't we develop our bishop to a3 here and see if we can't prevent castling for a little bit longer. So if black advances the king pawn or the e pawn, we exchange on f1. Now this is interesting. Black wants to break the pin. Okay, I think we're going to withdraw to a4, maintain the pin on d7, and put a little bit of pressure on the a7 pawn. I need to get castled though, because that knight on b1 is not happy. All right, here we go. So I don't think that this can be bad. Black will have to recapture on f8, and it will be that much longer before the king rook can come out, or the h8 rook. So I can collect that pawn on a7. Is that dangerous? It is not dangerous, because there's no checks coming. Yeah, I think we can get away with collecting that pawn on a7, and then we're going to have to castle very soon though. Oh, I see. So black wants to castle by hand. King to g7, and then that connects the rooks. Which means that he'll then be able to play rook to a8. All right, well, I got a castle. Let's see. If I castle, he plays king to g7. The threat is there already, but then I have to move my queen off of the A file. I can't move my queen off of the A file easily, can I? There are no unprotected squares. Castles, rook a8. Where do I go? Nowhere. That said, rook a8, queen takes a8, queen takes a8, rook takes a8. We've exchanged queens and rooks. Do I want to exchange everything right away? It sends me into an endgame essentially, 2 knights each and a rook. Good question. What's the alternative? Well, I come off the A file now, but I can't. There's no place to come off the A file too. I'd have to do that in 2 moves. Oh, though I can do it with tempo. I can play, well, it's not with tempo. I can play queen a3 check. King goes to g7, threatening now to play the rook to a8. But then I still castle. You know what? I'm going to castle. Okay, so he can force the exchange of major pieces by playing rook a8. So what do I do in the meantime? Do I develop my knight? I can keep the queens on. I can't, because there's no place for the queen to go. All right, well, I'm going to develop the knight, and we'll exchange the pieces if we need to. Take the knight to, yes. Yeah, so to c3, b5, d6 perhaps. All right, so this is pretty much forced. Unless I go to b7. Go to b7, what happens? Yeah, I'm going to go to b7. Make him make the exchange. If he exchanges on a1, then my rook is more active, and I get to keep the queens on. If on the other hand he goes back to b8 with the rook, okay, he's trading there. Now this is something you see the bot making moves that are typical of our level. I think most of us exchange much more freely than we should. Much more quickly than we should. See, look, he's offering another exchange. And now I have the option to keep some pieces on the board, which I think I will do. So where shall I bring my queen back to? Obviously the knight's under threat. We're coming back to b3. b3 or b2? I think we're coming back to b2. Yeah, that's why we cover both the knight and the rook. And we create some latent threats, potential discoveries along that diagonal. Okay, so here comes the knight out to d5. So that's interesting. That's interesting. If we capture on d5, he recaptures this way, and then we have a pawn structure that makes it difficult for me to create a passed pawn. So I don't like that. I think we're going to move the knight. Yeah, we're going to move the knight up to e4. Okay, the knight to f6. All right, capture on f6. Now, how is black going to recapture? With a knight, of course. This is fine still. As I say, there are going to be some potential threats along that diagonal. There's also a tender square here at f7. Though, if I'm going to take advantage of that, I have to be very, very careful, because there are back rank mating possibilities here for black. So in fact, maybe what I need to do is create some luft for my king. Maybe this is the moment. Play this and also deprive the black knight of the g4 square. Okay, so knight to e4. I have a discovered check if I want, don't I? So if I play d5, check, he can block with a knight. I can advance the pawn. Can't I? If he blocks with a pawn, that's fine too, because then my rook comes into a7 check. If he moves the king, he's burying his rook. Or if he moves the king to g8, he's burying his rook. If he moves the king to h6, that can't be bad for me. There we go. Now this bot, even though it's playing like a human, is playing like a human who plays very fast. Oh, this is very nice. The rook has been buried on h8. Now I can't advance the pawn to d6 because the knight just simply recaptures there. Okay, but I recapture on e6. That opens up. Okay, no, it does not open up. But, oh yes, it does. This is nice. All right, let's see. Rook to a8 check. This is just a terrible blunder. Rook to a8 check. He has to block with the queen, and then it's mate on the next move. So bots are like humans. But not a very satisfying end to this game, because there we go, checkmate. Yeah, it would have been nice to have been forced to go through the endgame. So let's take a real quick look at this game with the engine here. Let's see, I'm just gonna clean up this guy. There we go. All right, so the analysis board here, let's go to the beginning of the game. So as I say, Queen's Gambit accepted, and this is the case where there's a name for this. I can't remember off the top of my head what it is, where black essentially makes an attempt to hold on to the pawn. It's probably a bad idea, in that black can't actually hold on to that extra pawn, and they end up spending a lot of time, a lot of pawn moves, after all. A lot of pawn moves that are not developing their pieces, and that on top of that are creating all sorts of open lines on the queen side for white to take advantage of, as we saw in the game. So here we go. White has regained their pawn, and black is still trying to figure out how to develop and how to get his king castled. So in fact, at this point, if you look at the analysis, we've got nearly a full pawn advantage for white. Sorry about that. Just gotta decline that phone call. So yeah, white is effectively a pawn ahead, even though the material is even. White has so much more. There's so much more dynamism in white's position. So much more space, lead in development, and so on. So this is a fairly straightforward move. I'm not sure it's the best move necessarily, but it forces black into making compromises, which they duly do. And so after the capture there, things are basically straightforward from here. Now white has an extra pawn, and all white needs to do is, in theory, go into an endgame and queen the pawn. In practice, obviously, it's a little bit more difficult than that, and that's why, for instance, when the possibility of this trade came along, that I declined it. I was looking for different ways of keeping the game a little bit more complex than doing a simple trade. That said, the engine actually likes the recapture. So the engine wants to see us play this recapture, 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 and then creating some luft, and then essentially going into an endgame. As I said, I prefer to keep it a little bit more complex, and in fact it works out to be, for all intents and purposes, the same in terms of the computer evaluation. And then the rest of the game, I'm not sure that has a huge amount of interest. It's not a highly complex middle game or anything like that, and we basically end up with a one-end game that black basically throws away by playing the blunder that he played at the very end, which was, where was it here? Okay, king g8. Oh, yes. By the time king g8 comes on, look at the eval bar. We're just winning outright. And there's very little hope, and now we have a mate in 2 on the board. All right, so don't think this game was super interesting, but the exercise was fun for me, and I think we're going to try this again. Hope you enjoyed it, and if any of you out there want to try this yourselves, or join me and maybe even discuss a game together as you play it, I'd be more than willing to do that. Let me know. In the meantime, we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.